I was just made aware that this wasn't posted.
It's right here on the agenda.
The agenda that was emailed
Personal
out,
policy handbook adoption.
the email that was, the agenda that was emailed out, it wasn't on there.
It's been posted on the front and back doors since last week.
Okay.
That's the only place legally I have to post it.
Okay. Rick, you have a administrative detail to take care of.
Yes, I do. Please let the minutes reflect an amendment to the local record disposition list has been made for the purpose of accommodating the requirement for SERF, the County Employees Retirement Fund. The list was originally read during the March 21st, 2011 Commissioners meeting. The wage and tax documents located within boxes 7 and 8 in the clerk's vault will be retained. These documents are used as reference when employees retire, and the need to be retained is so forth ordered. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give you a second to put that in the minutes.
Okay.
Okay. After months of input, and modification and revisions and consideration and lots of typing and retyping, we have our personnel policy handbook put together and prepared for adoption. I would entertain a motion to adopt the 2011 version of the policy manual.
I'll make the motion that we adopt the 2011 proposal of the personnel manual.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We'll put a signature to it. You've made arrangements to have several hundred copies of this printed for distribution, correct?
Yes, I have.
Dan, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Have there been changes to this policy made since the first one was distributed around to
Oh yeah.
us for review?
The suggestions that were made, some of them are incorporated in, some of them didn't. Just bits and pieces of all of them have been incorporated in.
And does this policy, does it apply or not apply to elected officials?
It does not.
Okay. Do you have
Not
a
expressly.
policy in place that applies to elected officials in regard to reimbursement of travel expenses?
No.
Then are you aware that under IRS regulations that all reimbursements of travel expenses will then be taxable and need to be reported on W-2s?
Let me restate this. The elected officials, if somebody wants to go off the reservation and not abide by these regulations, that's their right. If they choose not to, their reimbursements become taxable. But because they all choose to, they fall under this handbook. This handbook covers them if they choose to. If an elected official chooses to not abide by this, that's not my deal. That belongs to them, the Ethics Commission, and the IRS. Does that make sense?
Well, but if you put out the statement saying that the policy does not
No,
apply
we didn't
to-
expressly say that.
Have you not read this?
No, I haven't read the final revision, no.
No, the language.
None of us have seen it.
The language is, furthermore, this document in no manner intends to infringe upon the statutory privileges afforded to elected officials or to encumber their right to implement additional personnel guidelines in their individual offices as they deem appropriate. It's not intended to shackle them. But if they choose not to abide by it, that's their problem. I'm not the judge and jury for all the elected officials.
Statutorily, we can't be. We can't make them
Right, and-
follow these rules.
right.
We can suggest that they do, and we hope that they do.
Right. But if somebody wants to do something contrary to this, there's nothing I can do about it. That's straight from Ivan Schrader.
So, what do you mean by that with the tax? If they don't abide by this, then that means they're...
If you
Explain that a
don't
little
have,
further.
if you don't have an accountable plan in place for the IRS, an accountable plan is an allowance or reimbursement policy under which amounts are non-taxable to the recipient if they meet certain requirements. Being there has to be a business connection to the expenditure, there must be adequate accounting by the recipient within a reasonable period of time, excess reimbursements or advances must be returned within a reasonable period of time. Adequate accounting means they have to verify the date, time, place, amount, and business purpose of expenses. Receipts are required unless the reimbursement is made under a per diem plan. So, if you don't have a policy in place, then all of your travel reimbursements become taxable.
The section that we use now, the 45 cents per mile, is our policy. Is it not?
Well, that's why I'm asking if it is the policy that applies to elected officials.
Sure. If they so choose. I can't put anything in this document that orders an elected official around. I can't do it, Deanne. I mean, as much as you would like me to, and in some ways I would like to, I can't do it. I cannot shackle other elected officials as much as some people think it would be a great idea. That puts me in a position where I'm breaking the law. And I'm not going to do that. I mean,
So
we have a payment policy for the mileage. It's 45 cents a mile, provide your documentation.
So if you want to get paid, you will get 45 cents a mile, or, well, what if they come up and say they want $1 a mile? Then they're accountable to the
Well, they're not going to get $1 a mile, they're going to get
45 cents. That's what I'm saying, I guess you're saying.
Well,
that
if the
leaves
policy
out-
doesn't apply to them though, and they want to turn in receipts that show what they paid for their gas.
The policy applies to them unless they say, I'm not abiding by the policy. This policy blankets employees. And it's taken.
Elected officials are employees of the county also, do we not?
Deanne,
get paid
I'm
by
not
the
going to
county?
continue this argument with you at all. I'm just not. It's a waste of time. The policy is in place. The elected officials have to abide by it. If they choose not to abide by it, we'll take legal action. But we can't extend this document to do something that the law says we cannot.
Well, I just want you to also be aware though of the IRS regulations, and if it's not followed, then it's our obligation to put those expenses on that employee's W-2.
And we are following it until an elected official comes in and says, well, how are they going to not abide by it? They submit the documentation, you reimburse them for the mileage.
Well, just like in the case we just had with Leah, she refused to say what county employees went to the conference. There's, right there, is no documentation that
Different
says
deal.
that was a
Different.
business-related expense. So if you don't have that documentation, then those expenses, once they're paid out to her, are taxable expenses on her income taxes.
Did she not, eventually, between your investigation and what she talked about, did you not ascertain that it was her and her assistant that went there? If we'd gone about this in a civilized manner, she'd have told you that right up front.
And I did go about it in a civilized manner. I asked her right up front, and she just refused to respond.
Well, that's a different deal for a different day, different accounts. This is our personnel
And it
policy.
doesn't matter whether it's under a discretionary account or whatever account, as long as it's paid out of public county funds and it's paid to the employee without that documentation, then it's taxable income.
Okay, then send them a 1099.
Yeah, then
we
it
can
is
do we can do
taxable.
one of two. We can do one of two
You
things.
can't send them a 1099. It has to be put on their W-2.
Oh, okay, put it on their W-2 then.
So if I advise the clerk's office to do that, that will be done?
I think the better way to go about this is to get all of our ducks in a row. But instead of getting our ducks
Well,
in a
that's
row,
what
we've
I'm
been fighting
asking
over
you to
whose
do.
duck is the most powerful and all-knowing duck. And now I think we've all established that not one duck in the courthouse knows more than any other one. Now that the dust settles, we say, here's what we need, Leah, to make this legit. I think she'll provide it. But if you recall, your request for that information was also coupled by a statement that led her to believe that you were trying to control spending in an account over which she doesn't have to listen to me or to you.
No, that original request, I just simply sent an email and said, I see that there were 2 people eating on these meal ticket receipts. Please tell me which 2 county employees attended the conference.
Now, does the IRS deal on all reimbursements or just mileage?
All reimbursements.